we're going to say some things to you that sound like we're contradicting you, but we're not contradicting you because we're on your side. We're clarifying. So we're just going to make some strong statements. You are not terrified of dying in a plane crash. You are terrified of dying. Now, terrified, meaning it's the other end of a stick that you really want. The reason that you're terrified of dying is because you're so in love with being alive in this physical body. Oh, the more in love with life you are, then the more the idea of not continuing it feels like just a horrible, horrible thing. Now, we can talk on and on about that. Part of it's because you're not looking at the big picture and you're going to be happy anyway and blah, blah, blah. We don't need to go there, even though we want to, because that's a big subject too. But we want to stay focused on what's going on here. This is evidence of your love of this life and how it feels. And when life feels its best to you, that's when you most don't want something to interrupt it, because you want to continue to experience the momentum and the effect of what you've been living. That's just the most natural thing. But your logical mind has turned it into something specific. All right, so now we're going to tell you another story. Put a pin in that. Hold that spot right there just for a moment. So here's something really worth thinking about. When we talk about the power of non-resisted thought, that's like usually a vague, sort of general thought that in its generality is not too detailed, that you don't have a lot of active information that is working against it. And so it's like watching a positive movie go by, and there's power in that. We call it the power of the daydream. You're awake, you're not asleep, and your mind is focused, but there's no resistance, and there's so much power in that. Hardly any of you ever do that. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that here today, about how to get after that. So Esther's been playing with that, where she's been setting time aside, where she's been pretty sure she's in the receiving mode because she meditated or was basking or something, pleasing herself in some way. She puts herself in an environment where it's easy to hold that feeling of well-being, and then she just lets her mind wander. And what's actually happening is the content of her vortex. Do you know what that is? When you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and you're launching these rockets, these requests of what you want, and they're being gathered in a vibrational atmosphere and tended by source energy and your inner being. And they are the precursor to the wonderful things that your life will demonstrate and manifest. But they're in vibrational form where you can't yet see them, sort of like the seed in the ground that is going to be a stalk of corn, and then an ear of corn, and then something really good to eat. But for now, it's something that you can't see. So there is this vibrational reality. It's so real, we gave it the name The Vortex, wrote 2 books about it, because we want you to accept the reality of this vibrational state of becoming. So this vibrational reality that your inner being knows about, that your inner being can look at and see in its fullness, because your inner being has seen the fullness of the picture of what your vibrational reality is. As your inner being is consciousness that knows that, as your inner being knows that, holds that consciousness upon the becoming of your life experience, and you are in a state of allowing, meditating or daydreaming or appreciating or rampaging, where you're not blocking it, then those images or visions or dreams or even sometimes words can float seamlessly into your life experience, sort of like you're watching a movie. We call that daydreaming. It is the most important skill to master, because it's non-resisted thought, and it means you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on with what you've created, and you are in an utter state of allowing, where it's flowing into your mind for the purpose of inspiring you and thrilling you, and maybe inspiring you to some action. But that's not the main event. You're not daydreaming to motivate yourself into practical action. You're daydreaming to experience the deliciousness of what you've already created. It's like an advanced announcement of that. So you get the picture of daydreaming. What you're doing with the airplanes, you're nightmarrying. And it's logical that you would. So let's talk about why you're doing that. You're in love with life, and you can feel the bigness of what's coming, even though it hasn't come. And you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss any of it. You want every bit of the deliciousness of it. But because you're not absolutely sure, maybe in the whole process, maybe you're a little insecure about your ability to apply it, even though you have so much evidence that lets you know you are applying it. You're picking up chatter from the world rather than from your vortex. Sometimes in those fearful moments, you're more of a vibrational match to the chatter that's not coming from source, that's not coming from your vortex, rather than being a vibrational match to the chatter that's coming from your vortex. So hold in your mind just the distinction between daydreaming and nightmaring, under the influence of source energy or under the influence of CNN, under the influence of well-being or under the influence of something else. And so let your logic say to you, well, that makes sense to me. And then ask the question of yourself, what was I doing thought-wise as I led myself into this daydream or into this nightmare? If Esther doesn't deliberately get up and quiet her mind and deliberately carve that out, if she gets right into email or right into watching something on television, before she knows it, she's tapped into that other swirling river of thought. And early on, she'll catch herself. She'll say, oh my gosh, I'm nightmaring. I'm using those as the basis of the building blocks, and I'm nightmaring. The thing that we want most to say to you, the thing that we want most for you to hear us say to you, is that anytime you feel that strong negative emotion, it's evidence of something really good in your vortex. Because if there were not that end of the stick, then the other end of the stick couldn't be either. In other words, if you did not have such an impassioned love and appreciation for life, you could not come close to the fear that you're feeling about the other. So it's just about focus, that's all. And focus is about where this thought started. We're not talking about all the years that you've thought about that, or all of the hours. We're talking about just this last little run. You know how long it takes for momentum to get going? Just a few 17 seconds. It's just a sequence that's really, 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 really recent. This is not something that is going to be hard for you to let go of, because you just started nightmaring a few minutes ago.